Now coming to the formation of the atrioventricular valves. So these atrioventricular valves are formed around by the proliferation of the mesenchymal tissue around the right and left atrioventricular canals. So there is proliferation of the mesenchymal tissue around the right and left endocardial cushions, and as because of the hemodynamic flow of the blood, there is hollowing that can be seen in the ventricular wall, as we said, by which the trabeculae carinae are formed. Similarly, the proliferated part, the ventricular surface of the proliferated part of the endocardial cushion also excavates to form the slender atrioventricular valves, which are attached to the ventricular surface, and they are attached to the other parts of the ventricular surface by a very slender trabecular cords, which are muscular cords. Later on, the muscular tissue of these cords, they degenerate and are replaced by dense connective tissue, that is the collagen fibers, covered by endocardium and transform into chordae tendineae. And the type of the trabeculae carinae that are formed, to which these chordae tendineae are attached, are called as papillary muscles. So the upper 1/3 of the papillary muscles gain attachment of these slender formed chordae tendineae, which are attached to the ventricular surface of the developing atrioventricular valves. And as the right atrium has 3 leaflets, it has 3 cusps for the tricuspid valve, and for the left ventricle it has 2 cusps for the mitral valve. And what so happens during the formation of the atrioventricular valves is, while the interatrial septum is fused after forming with the cranial part, the upper surface of the septum intermedium in the mid-sagittal plane, but this ventricular septum is fused on to the undersurface of the septum intermedium onto its right edge. It is not aligning with the interatrial septum, but the septal cusp of the tricuspid valve is at the junction of the interventricular septum to the endocardial cushion or the septum intermedium. So, and as these ventricles are still growing, as they enlarge, there is a pull that is seen on the interventricular septum, so that with that pull there is a right angle bend of the septum intermedium that has contributed for the formation of the interventricular septum, the membranous part of the interventricular septum. With the pull of the growing ventricles, the interventricular septum pulls the right edge of the septum intermedium, making it happen a right angle bend. But with this right angle bend, what so happens is, So it so happens that with the pull and the septum intermedium being bent into a right angle, there is descent of the septal cusp of the tricuspid valve also, where the interventricular septum above and below the septal cusp exists. So the membranous part of the interventricular septum below the septal cusp is between the right and left ventricles. The membranous part of the interventricular septum above or cranial to the septal cusp is between the atrium, the right atrium and the left ventricle, which is also called as atrioventricular valve. The valves here on the medial side are represented by red color and laterally they are represented by blue color. And the part which is not represented here by red color above the septal leaflet is the interventricular septum, that is between the right atrium and the left ventricle, which is the atrioventricular part of the interventricular septum. So now coming to the septum formation of in the truncus arteriosus and conus cordis, that is the central part, the middle part of bulbus cordis and the distal part of bulbus cordis. So during the formation of the septum, sometime around the 5th week, all these septa, remember, they are appearing at about the beginning or ending of the 5th week and are completing by about 8th week. So these ridges which appear in these areas, the middle, the conus part and in the truncus arteriosus part, they are called as truncal swellings which appear in the truncus arteriosus, which is the right superior and the left inferior. So this one and this one. And in the conus part, they are called as bulbar swellings, which are right dorsal and the left ventral. So what so happens here is the right superior truncal swelling, it grows distally and to the left to fuse here, whereas this left swelling, the left truncal inferior swelling, it grows distally and to the right. So this grows this way to fuse with this, and this truncal swelling of the left side grows downwards and to right to fuse with this, and the right and the left bulbar swellings, they fuse with each other horizontally. And while this fusion is happening, they go towards the aortic sac. The aortic sac is cranial to the truncus arteriosus. This is the aortic sac. So here the swellings, during their process of fusion, they get twisted around each other, and that's how the spiral course of the aortopulmonary septum is being formed. And after the complete fusion of the aortopulmonary septum, there is separate formation of the pulmonary trunk and the aorta in the truncus arteriosus, and the outflow tract, there is a smooth part of the ventricles in the conus cordis part. So here in this diagram, the truncal ridges, the right superior, left inferior, and these are the bulbar ridges, right dorsal and left ventral. So all these, they grow towards each other and they fuse to form aortopulmonary septum, which takes the spiral turn during its fusion because of the hemodynamics of the blood flow. So here we can see the twisting of the septum, So this septum, it twists of about 180 degrees, forming the spiral pulmonary septum sometime around 6th week, dividing the bulbus cordis and truncus arteriosus into pulmonary trunk and the aorta. So because of the spiraling of the septum, we can see the spiraling of the pulmonary trunk and the aorta over each other. Initially, the pulmonary trunk is anterior to the aorta here. In the middle, the pulmonary trunk comes onto the left side and the aorta comes onto the right side. Distally again, the pulmonary trunk goes behind and the aorta comes in front. That's what you have seen. The aorta is in front and the pulmonary trunk is behind. So all this time,